Okay, so today we're going to look at the Niagara network, but before we do that, we'll just recap one issue from yesterday, which was the point extension defaults. So if we look at our system, now I'm running, this time it's a little bit different. I'm connecting to a remote station at this IP address, and it's running a station called FX01. It's running it on a Windows platform, but if it was an FX80, it would look very, very similar. So this is a remote station at this IP address. I double click on the station, double click on the route. That's my main homepage graphic. I've built a backnet network, added a folder called Building A and a folder called Level 1, and underneath that I've got some backnet devices, and I've imported the CAF file so that when I double click on VAV01 I see my graphic and I see my points. Okay, when I double click on my points folder, I get what's shown as the point extension manager. Okay, and there's also an option for the JCI point extension manager, which is the same, essentially the same file, same view, same options. Yeah. So in here, I got the option to add a trend or an alarm or a totalization. So if I go to my zone temperature, I can tick the trend box. I can also tick the alarm. I right click and I can choose an out of range or status alarm. So if I choose out of range and save it, I've just added that alarm extension to that point. So if I look here on the tree, I've got my out of range alarm extension added. If I double click this point so that I'm looking at the property sheet for that point, my out of range alarm has been set up with no initial high limit, low limit. So the extension's there, but I still have to come in here and do some setup. Now, if my customer had said, I want my zone temperatures to have a high limit alarm of 25 degrees and a low limit alarm of 20 with a differential of 0.5. And then he said, I want a particular message and I want to have lower limits and high limits. And maybe I want to have a 1 minute delay time for alarm. And likewise, I want to have a 1 minute delay time for my return to normal. If those were the requirements in the specification, we want to apply this out of range alarm to all of our zone temperatures. Okay, so one thing we could do is we can copy this alarm extension and we could go down to our next VAV and we could go here, right click and paste. And now we've got that same set of parameters all set up the same. So we could do that, but that would be a fairly slow way to do it. Another way we can do it is to come down here to the bottom of our, let's collapse up our building. We've got our Facility Explorer folder, and then we've got Point Extension Defaults. And we've got a group here called Numeric Alarms. And currently it's got an outer range and a status. If I select here and go right click and paste, I'm going to add the one that I copied before, and I could call it Zone Temperature Alarm and go OK. So there it is. Just confirm that it's got all of the settings that we want, and you'd have to make sure you spent the time and got these exactly how you want them. And one thing here that's important is the source name is listed as parent, 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 display name, / parent display name. So what that means is, if I apply it to a typical BACnet controller, it's going to have 3 parents display names. So I'm starting here. That's my first parent. Second parent is points. Third parent is the VAV name. Okay. And then / parent display name, which is this point here. So we're getting that point, that name, and that name together with a slash in between defines the point. Now you want, when your alarm comes up, you want to be able to identify it in the entire system. So you might want to go, because VAV01 won't be unique. There'll be a VAV01 on level 1, and there's possibly a VAV01 on level 2, and so on. Okay, so if we wanted to include the level in the name, we could go here, put another / and then we could copy these 3 parents display name, 3 parents display name, copy that. And this time we add one more parent in there. We've got 4 parents display name. So we're getting that name plus that name plus this name, each with a / between them. Okay. So we're done that, we're happy with that, and we save it. Okay, so what we're saving here is the point extension default numeric alarm ZNT alarm. Now, when we go back to our points folder here, and we choose our JCI point extension manager, and we say right click on, say, this zone temperature here, which I've added. If we right click in the alarm column, right click, now I've got an extra option here, which is ZNT alarm. So that's the alarm I just created. I choose that. It's there. I go save. So now when I go and look at my ZNT, it's got a ZNT alarm. If I look at it closely, the ID is Sorry, I'm looking at the history there. I want to look at the zone, temperature alarm. And there's my alarm. Set up with the alarm limits I want. Enabled. All good to go. So at the moment, my temperature is 22.2 degrees. If I were to make it 26 degrees. Oh, and the other thing that's important is the alarm class. So at the moment, I've got it going to the default alarm class. And if that's what we agree we're going to do, then that's fine. If I wanted to change that, I'd need to make sure I changed it in here, because this point extension defaults folder, that definition there is the one that's going to get applied over and over and over again. So I need to make sure everything is correct in this definition. So if I go to this point, action, and override him to 26 degrees, I'll put that in there for 15 minutes. Okay, so it's now 26 degrees. We've got a 1 minute delay time. And if we go up here to our alarm service, and we've got our default alarm class here, and it's going to this alarm console. So if we double click that alarm console, we've just now got an alarm come through as level 1 VAV01 zone temperature. Okay, and we can acknowledge that. And there it's done. And likewise, if we, we'll mark all of those and acknowledge them so they don't annoy us anymore. That was VAV1. We look at VAV number 2 and we can do a similar thing. We double click our point extension manager. We look at the JCI version of that. It will include this point that I've added already. I can right click here, set up my zone temperature alarm and save it. Now if I go to this guy and I right click, action, override down to say 19 degrees for 15 minutes, we'll expect to see an alarm come through. And we'll expect to see an alarm in our console. If we're lucky. We probably need to wait for the 1 minute to go by, and then we'll see the alarm show up in our alarm console. Okay. So if we look here underneath the numeric in our point extension defaults, we've got numeric alarms. We've also got numeric trend. Okay, so when we set up a trend, these are our choices. We can have an interval, interval 1 minute, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. If we go back to here and we want to set up a trend on that point, on any point, say supply airflow, right click, interval 1 minute, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. Okay, so if I choose 5 minutes and save it, there's my 5 minute interval set up. If I look at that point, we're on VAV number 2, supply air fan, interval 5 minutes with 3 parent display name. So first parent is SAF, second parent is points, third parent is VAV02, and then / single parent display name, which will be SAF. So looking here, we've got VAV02 supply air fan. Okay. Now again, if we're going to label all of our VAVs as O2, so that level 2 will also have a VAV called O2, then maybe we need to insert the level in this history name field. And so for that, we would do the same thing we did. We would go here, 5 minute interval, and we would add that, paste it, and add one more parent in. Parent. Okay. So this is all a bit complicated and all a bit tricky to do, this stuff, but that does mean that when you apply this extension to lots of points, the name will be correctly configured, and you don't have to manually create the name every time. You can use this formula to create the name based on what you've just assigned it to. Okay, so if we save that, go up here to our VAV2 points and look at maybe the zone set point, right click on the trend, interval 5 minutes, and save. Zone set point, interval 5 minutes, and the ID is level 1 VAV2 zone set point. Okay. So that's our numeric alarms. This is our numeric trends, and there's also an option for numeric totalization. So that when you go here and click on totalization for, say, the occupancy, you can choose this discrete totalization, in which case, because it's a Boolean point, it's choosing the Boolean total discrete option. Yeah. And the main thing that's important for that is, do you want to count the change of state for both transitions? So this change of state count, if you do to active, then we're counting the number of starts. If we do it to inactive, we're counting the number of stops. And if we do it for both, then we're counting it twice. So we're counting every time it turns on plus every time it turns off. So to my mind, probably to active is a more useful number to record, which is the number of starts. Okay. So if I wanted to make that what gets applied to all of my Boolean totalizations, I would save it. And so we've got the same for enum totalizations, enum alarms, Boolean alarms, enum trends, change of value, all those three options again, Boolean, change of value, and three options. Okay. So those point extension defaults, which is under the Facility Explorer folder, this is where you define all of the options that you get when you double click on your air handling unit, double click on points, point extension manager, right click on an effective occupancy, so an enum point. If I right click there, they're my choices. If I right click there, they're my choices. If I right click on trend, they're my choices. Okay. If I go to an analog point, right click. For trend, they're my choices. Right click on alarm for an analog point, and we get this ZNT alarm, the one special one that we created before. Yeah. So you can make that list as long as you like with, if you've got specific alarm limits or specific trends or specific totalizations that you want to set up, you can add them to these lists and they'll be available to be bound. Okay, so that's the extension defaults. So are there any questions on any of that? All right, so that was just recapping a bit or finishing what we didn't cover yesterday. And now we'll get on to today's subject, which is talking about the Niagara network. Okay, so I've created a new station on my PC called a station called FX server. So I double click and log into my FX server. And my config, drivers, I've just got a single network, which is a Niagara network. Okay, when I buy my server license and I buy 10 Niagara licenses, that means I can have 10 Niagara devices underneath this Niagara network. Okay, so when you buy a server license, what you buy is the number of Niagara connections or Niagara devices that you can map under your Niagara network. Okay, and so you can have 0 through to unlimited, depending on what you buy. Okay. Now, if I want to connect, if I want to add, how about I double click my Niagara network and I'll delete this. Action. delete. So I've taken away, so I've now got an empty Niagara network. Okay. Sitting out there on my network, I've got a station running called FX01. Now, in Niagara network, I get the option to discover when I'm in my Niagara network station manager view. If I look at my AX property sheet for my Niagara network, it's very similar to other networks. One of the things it doesn't have is it doesn't give you doesn't ask you to define which Ethernet card you're going to use. It does have the local station. So this FX server is the local station. It's got this IP address and that port number. Okay. I don't get to change any of that because that's coming from my network card in my PC. Okay. Now, if instead of the property sheet, I look at my station manager view, I can go and discover, and it'll go out and search for Niagara devices on my network. And it didn't find them. Okay, and so the discovery may or may not work. It's more there as a convenience item. If you discover, you go out and try and discover a station and you don't find it, then that's not the end of the world. You can go, if you know the IP address of the device, you can go new and create a new Niagara station. Go OK. I can give it a name, which will be FX01. And it'll be an IP address 192.168.0.66 on port 4911, and I can use FOX-S, which is the secure FOX protocol. Username and password. So when my server connects to the station, it has to log into the station. It's got to have a username and password that's on the station. Okay, and that username and password defines what the server can do when it's connected to that station. So I've created a user called M2M, and I put the password in.
Hey David.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I am interrupt you.
Yeah, you're right.
I will talking about the our project so far.
Yes.
So far, we create in one project there is two FX80.
Yes.
One for the building automation system.
Yeah.
And one again for the chiller plan optimization CPO.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So far, we bought from the Johnson Control one FX server. It's the one bus and it's one CPO. My question is, can we using one FX server for two FX60, one for bus and one again for the CPO? This the efficient design, or maybe you can give the other advice.
So you've got an FX80 that's going to do the BMS, and you've got a second FX80 that's going to do the CPO. Yeah? Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so your FX server is going to have two devices. under its Niagara network. It's going to have the BMS FX80 and the CPO FX80. So it's going to have two Niagara connections. So you need to have a 2 Niagara connection license. So let's see if I've got, yeah, so that was, let me find it.
Sorry, David.
Yep. So you need the 002 and the 002M1. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I know, but based on my experience, if we using we talking with the metasis, right?
Yep.
There is the alarm warning regarding the hack memory in AE or in IE.
Yep.
Always like that. So we worry if we using one FX server, the problem is same. There is the alarm about the memory. Pak Felix, can you? Pak Felix.
So you.
Yes.
Yeah, Pak. We talking about the full memory, Pak. Sometimes we talking about the full memory. Let's say our project in the Park Mall Sawangan. You know, Pak. The alarm is always shown the memory full, almost full like this lah. So we worry if we using the FX80, the problem same like this.
So the FX80 that's doing the BMS, how many devices is it going to connect to? Is it connecting to the NAEs? Or is it connecting to MSTP devices like VAVs and AHUs or
nine device? Only 9 device.
9?
Yeah, 9.
And what are those devices? Are they NAEs or are they?
One in AS for 9 FEC.
Yeah.
Also, sorry. Also, additional others IP backnet, right?
Yeah.
No, Pak. In Sawangan, we not connect with the IP backnet.
Only
the MSTP. 9 DDC.
No others IP backnet.
No, Pak.
Okay.
Yeah. So if the FX80 is only connecting to 9 devices, and so you get a 10 device license would be enough, or if you're worried, you could go to 25 device license. So that's 9 devices with 50 points each, so 450 points. That's fine. That's easy for the FX80 to do. So the BMS FX80 with 450 points, 9 devices, that'd be fine. That'd be very easy for it to do. It would work well. Similar for the FX80, doing the CPO, as long as it's, it's really just the device license. If you get that correct, then you'll get an FX80 that will do the job. Yeah. And then those two FX80s will then communicate back to the FX server, and they will require, this will need to be a 2, not a 3, yeah? So you just have to have SL002 for your 2 FX80s communicating to your FX server. If you think you
Okay.
might need 3 in the future, then get 3. Or if you think 10 is more likely, get 10. But so
Okay.
this SL license here, that defines the number of devices you can have underneath your Niagara network.
Okay, David.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I'm in the process of adding this Niagara device to my Niagara network. Okay. And it's FX01, which is the one that's running down here at IP address 192.168.0.66. I put in a username and password and go OK. And there's my device. There it is, sitting there. If I double click, I can see my client connection. Currently it's not connected. When it does connect, it will use this username and password to connect. If I right click, action, manual connect, it'll go out and try and connect. Okay, and it's come back connected. Okay, so now I've got a connection to that FX80. Now, if I choose the option to say virtual's enabled and go true and save it, underneath my FX01 station, which is now underneath my Niagara network, if I click on virtuals, I can go in and look and see my building A, my level 1, my AHU, my VAV. I can even double click and see my VAV01 underneath that FX01. Okay. So I've got a connection through to this device. If I change my password and save it, next time I try and connect, first of all, I'll disconnect and then I'll try and connect again. Okay, it's connecting and it failed. Okay, and when it does fail, so if you've got a Niagara network with a device that's down, so not connected, you've got the client connection last disconnect cause. If you look in this field here, you'll see authentication exception rejected. Okay, so it failed to authenticate, which typically means the username is wrong or the password is wrong. So I put the correct password in. And I save it. Now I right click, action, connect. It goes out, tries to connect again. And this time it's successful. And I've got a connection. So if I look back here, there it is. It's working, it's connected. Okay. So my FX device, so let's call this an FX80 for now. So I've connected to my FX80 and it's underneath a Niagara connection. And it's just like every other device in Facility Explorer, it's got a points folder. And if I double click on my points folder, I get my point manager. And in here I can go discover. And it's going to discover all of the devices, all of the points in that remote device that I just connected to. So I go OK. And there it's gone and discovered all of those points. So it's discovered my level 1 air handling unit. So all of these points here are my level 1 air handling unit. So I could go here, level 1 air handling unit, and I could go add. Okay, and it's going to add those points. So I go OK. And then it's going to subscribe to those points. And there they are. They're all listed there under the points folder, which isn't really much help to me because I don't even know that it's air handling unit number 1. So a better way to do it is to, let's get rid of all of those points. Right click, delete. Let's try it again. So we've got our points folder, and let's instead go a new folder, and we'll call it Building A. And then underneath that, we'll have a new folder called Level 1. Okay, and here we are under Level 1. And then under Level 1, we'll have a new folder called AHU. Okay. Now I can go and discover. If I discover all of the points, I can grab all of the AHU points, which are there, and I can add them and go OK. So I've added them and they're subscribed. So now I've got all of my AHU points. Likewise, I can create a new, double click on Level 1. And it's important when I create folders that I create them from inside this point manager view. So I'm Level 1, new folder called VAV01. Okay, there's my VAV01. Double click. When I go discover, what I could do is if I choose this search icon here, I can say let's go out and search Building A Level 1 VAV1 and go OK. So now I'm going to start my search at that point and go OK. Now I've just got the VAV01 points. And I select the first one, select the last one. If they're ones I didn't want to use, I could go unselect them by hitting the Control key, like that. Then I can go add. These are all my points. Go OK. And there I've got them. So this one's a numeric writable point. So it's online and working. All the other ones are backnet points that are connected to a backnet device that's not working. So that's why they're all fault and stale, but this one is correct. Okay. All right. Now, when it comes to VAV number 2, one way I can do it is to right-click and duplicate VAV01. Call it VAV02. Double-click. These are all my points, but you'll notice they're still mapped to VAV01. Okay, they're all, so I've selected them all, and I can choose Edit. There they all are. And this point ID is where they get bound, connected, right? So instead of VAV01, I want to be VAV02. Now, if I click on this icon here, I get a search and replace option that says I can search for AV plus 201, and I can replace it with VAV 202. Okay. So as an example, level 1 VAV now I want to find $2001, sorry. And I'm going to replace it with 02. So this one, this last one here, VAV $201, VAV $202. Okay, see the change? I go OK. Now I'm looking at VAV02. I can go OK. It's unsubscribed and now they're subscribed. Okay.
So you notice this year I came through a bit later.
All right. So I've effectively created, so the points that are down here in the real station logging into the real remote station, config, drivers, backnet network, building A, level 1, AHU, VAV01 points. So all those points are now sitting up here under VAV01. Okay, so I'm creating, in my Niagara network, I'm mapping points from the remote to the server.
So David, earlier, based on the earlier sessions, we were
Mhm.
creating points in the FX80 and the graphics in the FX80.
Yep.
So in this case, we create the points in FX80, subscribe to it in the FX server, and then only create the graphics in FX server.
That's right. So the
Right.
yeah, so you can you make a decision where do you want to build the user interface that the operator is going to use, and typically you build that user interface in the server, in which case you want to create the graphics in your Niagara network around these points here. So you would have a graphic for building A, a graphic for level 1, and a graphic for your VAV. So if I want to put a graphic for my VAV, here I can double click, and there is no graphic option here. So I can go new view, and it's going to be a graphic, and I'm going to use the PX file which I created earlier called VAV, and it's under, so it's not under PX, sorry, it's go up to files on my station, graphics, VAV graphic, and save. Okay, I'm going to reuse it. So that's graphic is one that I copied from my 80 up onto my, and you'll notice none of the points are bound correctly. So if we look at the binding here, so if we edit the graphic and we look at the binding is slot points. It's going through a points folder, which when we look here, we don't have a points folder. We just go from the VAV straight to the points. So what we can do is, if we just take out those point references to points, and we can do that by clicking again on this icon which says replace ords, and I can replace points / with colon. So I go OK. So that means that this slot here, this, instead of being points / that, it's just going to be colon, slot colon that. I go OK. All my bindings are now working. Okay. And I can save that. And now when I double click on my graphic on my server, this is what I see. Yeah. I double click on my VAV number 2 server. Oh, so that worked. This one didn't, and the reason is because I don't have the graphic view defined. So I click on my new view, graphic, the file I'm going to use is graphics, VAV graphic, save it, OK, reuse it. There's VAV number 2. There's VAV number 1, VAV number 2. Okay. Similar for my air handling unit, double click, I don't have a graphic defined, so I go new, add a new view called graphic, and it's going to be AHU graphic. Save that. Okay, reuse. There it is. It's got the same problem. When I edit it, everything has got points in the name. Yeah. So I go edit, and I replace points with colon. All right. I go OK, and I save it, and I load it again.
Yeah, both Rick.
And there it is,
Both Rick and Dave rules.
with the bindings all in place,
They remain
based on
person,
these points
but
here.
they change organisation.
Okay. So this one, yeah. So that's and I could go and duplicate level 1, and I would turn it into level 2. And the way I go, I would have to do a lot of replacing, but essentially I could go through and recreate everything that I had down here. Okay. So that's mapping points out of a remote device, out of an FX80, mapping them into the server. So when they're residing here, they're residing inside the FX server station. Okay, those points are FX server points. Now just say we had up in our FX server, we had a master point called the outside air temperature and humidity. Just say we had a common outside air temperature and humidity for the entire site. Okay, and if we were hosting those 2 points on our server, now if we put that there just so to get some, give it some values. Okay, and then our humidity will just set that to 3%. Set up our, got to get our units right, so we'll set our units to be humidity, maybe miscellaneous, so we got it in here. Percent relative humidity, so that's under miscellaneous. So percent RH, 1 decimal place. Okay, save it, refresh. So now it's 63%. We go back, look at our temperature. We want to change that to be EQRST temperature, degrees Celsius. Okay, 1 decimal place. Okay, so there's 17.3 degrees C. Yep. So I've got these master points in my FX server, And then I go over to my remote station, my FX80 out in the field, and he's got a backnet network talking to backnet devices, but he can also have a Niagara network talking to Niagara devices.
Sorry, David, I just got a quick question.
Yep.
For this example, are you actually connecting to an FX80 or is that like a virtual FX80?
So this you could call this a virtual FX80. It's Workbench on a PC at that IP address.
All right.
Running a station. But it's from the station perspective, everything in here is no different, whether I'm connected to a station in a PC or a station in a JACE, which is FX80. So stations are the same. The only thing that's different between an FX80 and a Windows PC is the platform. And even then the platform is almost identical. The only time you'll see differences is in things like the TCP/IP configuration. So I'm connecting, so that's the computer there, yeah. This is the Windows username and password for that computer. And this is the Ethernet card in the computer, okay? If this was an FX80, it would look the same, but there would be two IP ports for the two IP ports on an FX80.
So in this case, both the FX80 and FX server have the same IP address, right?
That's right. So in this case here, this PC is pretending to be an FX80 at address .66. Yeah.
Got it.
And in reality, if I took it to site and it turned out to be at some different IP address, then the only change I would need to make in my server station would be in here, in my Niagara network, I refer to that IP address. So if it was actually 166, I would just change it there, save it, and it would start communicating to a device at that IP address.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. Okay, so I'll refresh that and not make the changes. That's back to 66. So just now we'll call this an FX80 just because in practice it would be. So we go to this remote FX80 and he's got a backnet network talking to backnet devices, but he's also got a Niagara network talking to Niagara devices, one of which is the FX server. So in here, I can double click on this FX server and his client connection is currently not connected. And partly that's because I don't have a username and password defined. So I'll put a username in there. Let's call it M2M. The password. And I save it. Then I can right click, go action, manual connect. And it didn't work. And it says failure cause, unknown host exception. Sorry, the IP address, I'll change that to be so this will be the IP address of the server that I'm connected to, which is Okay, so this is my IP address is 192. Where is it? 192.168.0.16. So in here I want 192.168.0.16. And I save that and I refresh. So now when I go client connection, right click, action, manual connect, go OK. This time my failure cause is SSL exception, certificate, private key for blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't like the certificate, right? So I need to go to the services on this station, platform service, certificate manager service. Double click. And then there's this option here called allowed hosts. And do I want to allow the certificate from this IP address, which is my server? If I approve that, okay, so it didn't. So we might approve it again and see what we get. So it's approved. Let's go back. Right, click action, manual connect. Private key for. Okay, so what we might do is go up to our server. And go to his certificate manager. And create a new certificate called FX. Okay, so now I've got this server here. So let's see if I can. Look, now I'm on the remote device. It's not there yet, so if I let's delete that one. Now if I come into my Niagara network, FX server, and try to connect. Client connection. Right click, action, manual connect. Okay, so it didn't like the certificate. If I go up here to my certificate manager, allowed hosts, here it is. This time I approve it. So it's allowed, it's got a green tick, so that's a good sign. I go back and my client connection now, I go right click, action, manual connect. And this time I got authentication failed, right? So I'm no longer getting the SSL error because my certificate is approved, but now I'm getting authentication failed. So this username and password is being rejected. So I go up to my server, which is what I'm trying to connect to. I go to my user service and I don't have a user called M2M. So if I grab a user like admin and I duplicate and call him M2M, okay, and then I double click and I go in here to my password, somewhere in here, right, password. I put the same password in as before. And save. Now when I go back to my FX80 equivalent, a backnet network, Niagara network, FX server, client connection, right click, action, manual connect, and it's connected. Okay. So now I've got, if I look at my Niagara network, I've got an FX server and a client with a client connection. So in this case, the FX80 is the client and it's connected to the FX server. Now when I go here, I can go points and I can discover points in the server. And I can go looking in particular, if I go looking I guess go okay, what am I going to get? These are my master points. Outside air temperature and humidity. They're the 2 points that I was after. Okay, so before I bring them in, let's create a folder called master points. And in that folder, I'm going to go and discover my outside air temperature and humidity. Okay. Oh, and there. Select them, edit. Okay, so up here, my server enabled is false, so I need to make that true. Now when I save that, it's connected. These master points are reliable. Okay, so now points that exist up in the server are available down in the FX80. So if I had on my backnet network, I've got my air handling units. If he's got an outside air temperature okay, so if I need to pass the outside air temperature down to this AHU, then I can right click and mark this guy. I can go down to my Niagara network, outside air temperature, right click, and I'm going to link to the one I just marked. So I'm going to come out of my Niagara OAT, and I'm going to connect to the in 16 of my backnet control, the AHU, outside air temperature. So on my out, if I look at my AHU points, somewhere in here I've got my outside air temperature. There he is, double click. He's currently receiving an input at priority 16 of 25.7, and that's coming from my FX server master outside air temperature. So 25.7, I override this to 30 degrees for 1 minute, say okay. The one down inside the FX80 has received that new value of 30. Okay, so that's how you share data between Niagara devices. So is there any questions on any of that?
Hey, David.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we forgot from the username and password of the FX80,
Yep.
how to reset?
So the best thing to do is don't forget it.
Yeah.
Right. So there's two passwords involved. There's the password for the platform. So let's look at this guy here. We're calling this an FX80. There's the platform password, and then there's the station password. Okay. The station password is what everybody uses to log into the station. So they all have their username and password. So there'll be an admin username and password. There'll be an operator, a tenant, whatever. So a whole heap of users will interact with the station all the time. And those username and passwords are in the services user service in there. So if you can if someone forgets, so if I had my admin and I duplicate him for, and call it the owner. There he is, the owner's username and password. If the owner forgets his password, but you can still log in with this one, then you log in with admin, you come into this here, you double click, and you type a new password in there for the owner. You confirm it. You can tick the box that says reset at next login, and then you save it. You give that new username and that new password to the owner. He can come in and log in, and away you go. So that's easy, as long as you remember the admin password. Okay. If you and the owner, you forget yours, or the owner forgets his, so there's nobody with admin rights anymore, then the only way to change this password, to reset it if you like, is to copy this station to Workbench, make a change, copy it back. So in order to copy the station to Workbench, you have to log into the platform of the FX80. Okay. So out of the box, the platform username is JCI, password is Explorer, and then it makes you change that to something. And so the platform username and password is critical, that you don't lose that. Okay, so if you know the platform username and password, then you log on to the platform, you log on to the station, you open up the station copier, okay, and you get this view here, which shows the station that's running in the remote platform. And then on the left-hand side is stations on my computer. Okay, so I'm in Workbench, I've connected to a platform, I'm going station copier, and I get the option to copy this station back to my PC. Okay, and I'll give it a new name, station 01 back. And I'll just copy, to be quick, I'll just copy the bog file. I'll go next, and I go finish. Right, so it's just copied it over to the left, and there it is sitting on my PC now, and it's in this location, users, CMLDA, there, all right. If I go up here to my file system, and I find this directory, so I go C drive, users, CMLDA, Niagara 4.9, Tritium stations, and there's the station that I just copied across. It's sitting on my C drive, and underneath it's got a file called config.bog. Now I can expand that out, and I'm looking at the station. So that config.bog fully defines the station. Okay, it's the definition of the station, and included in that definition is the users. Okay, including the admin user and the owner. So if I double click here on the owner, I can go in here and type in the new password for the owner. And I confirm it. And I save it. All right. So I didn't have to log in or do anything to do that. All right. I just opened up the config.log file on my PC. In order to get that onto my PC, I had to do a station copy from the remote platform, but that's all I needed to be able to do. I copied it to here. I opened it up. I made this change. After I make that change, I have to click to the config.log file itself and save it, or right-click and save the file. Okay, so now the file's saved with the new owner's password in it. If I go back down to my FX80, onto the platform, station copier, grab the backup, copy it across, change the name back to that, go next, and it's going to overwrite everything there. I won't do it, but that's what you would do. You go next, and it would copy the new station with the new password in it down to the FX80. Okay?
Okay, thank you, David.
Yeah. So in order to do that, I had to know the platform username and password. So as the installer of the FX80, you've got to not lose that platform username and password. You've got to keep that really safe. Don't forget it. Don't lose it. If you can't do that, if you don't have that platform username and password, then none of this is possible, right? You're now faced with restoring the platform, and you do that by, there's a button on the FX80. There's a backup and restore button on the FX80. You hold that button down while you turn the power off. You power up the FX80 with that button pushed, and you've got to be connected with a serial terminal. Like, there's a whole process you follow, but basically it wipes the station clean, and it gives you the option and it restores back to the factory platform username and password. Okay. So in the process, though, it totally destroys what's in it.
How about the licenses?
The licenses are fine,
All right.
but the station is lost. Okay, so if you don't have a backup to load in there, then you've lost everything in the controller. Now, I think if you've got a situation where there's an FX80 with a station, you've got no backup, you don't know the platform password, you don't know the station password, you know nothing, you can't get into anywhere, there is still a process whereby you can connect with the serial terminal and reset the platform credentials, but it involves, you have to get Tritium involved to do that. So that's an even more involved process. Okay.
David, earlier once you've copied the new FX80 station to the FX80,
Yep.
you need to reset the password in the connection tab. Right.
The first time you connect to an FX80, you use the JCI Explorer username password, and it'll accept that, but then it'll make you change it to something new. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And at that point, you got to make sure you keep a record, don't lose it, because once you've lost the platform username and password, it's not easy from there. The station users you can recover from. The platform username and password is a lot harder, a lot more complicated, and possibly involves tritium. So the best solution is to not get in that situation.
All right. Noted.
All right. Okay. So back to where we were. So we've got an FX server, and he's got a Niagara network with a single FX80 defined, got some points. Now, if we wanted to, just so we had several FX80s, but we had one master schedule, time schedule that we wanted to use for the whole building. Okay. So what we do there is we create the schedule in the server. So we could go to Facility Explorer, link folder, or let's go here. And we can look at, get a schedule manager view, link folder, schedule manager, and we can create a new schedule. And let's call it an enum schedule. We'll call it the master schedule. And it'll have an enum point that is 1 is off and 2 is on. Okay. So I'm going to add an enum schedule. So add that schedule called master schedule. There it is. Now it's sitting there under the link folder called master schedule. If I double click, I can go to my properties and say the default output is off. I'll save it. Now my weekly schedule on Monday, I'm going to start at 7:30 and go through till 6 o'clock. And it's going to be on. Okay, I can right click and apply that to Monday to Friday. Then maybe on Thursday I've got stay open until 9 o'clock, say. Save that. So that's my master weekly schedule. And if I needed to do anything in the server that involved that schedule, just say maybe in my custom control in here, I had something, I don't know, like I get my palette with a enum writable point called master start. And I can go to my master schedule, link mark, go to my master start, link from the schedule. So I come out of the schedule and in 16 to here. Okay. In here I set up my facets to be off and on. Yeah. Save it. Go back. So now it's on because the schedule turned it on. Okay, so there's a little bit of automation happening in the server using this master schedule I created. Now when I go down to my FX80 down here at 0.66, I've got my drivers, my BACnet network, and my Niagara network. And there I've got my FX server. And underneath my FX server, I've got a folder called schedules. If I double click on that, I've got my schedule import manager. So this is on the FX80 looking back towards the server, connecting to the server via the Niagara network and discovering the schedules that are in that server. And there's one called master schedule, and I can add him to my FX80 database. Okay. And now under here, I've got a master schedule. If I double click, I can see the start and stop times for that schedule. If I try and change them, I can't change them. I can't edit this schedule because it's just a copy of the one that's in the server. So if I go up to the server, master schedule up here, and double click, I can make a change and save it. Go back down to the FX80. That change hasn't happened yet. If I look at the property sheet for this master schedule, there's the import extension, which defines when does it import. At the moment, it's a manual trigger. Now I can change, instead I'll change that to interval so that it updates every minute all the time. So I save that. The next time it'll update is at 1:47, which is currently 1:46. If we go back, this is our master schedule. When 1:47 rolls around, we'd expect that to change to the new times. Okay, but once I've got this schedule defined in my FX80 underneath the station, drivers, Niagara network, schedules, master schedule. All right, if I right click, go link mark, I can go up to my BACnet network and I can go to my air handling unit and my supply fan command. I can right click and link from the master schedule, come out of there and into there. Go OK. If I look at that, he's now got an on command at priority 16 coming from that schedule, which is now updated with the new time. Okay. And again, because this is a copy of that schedule inside the FX80, I can't change it. If I want to change it, I have to go up to the server, at which point I can change it. And we'll change it to 150. 155. Okay, so I click on that, and we can see down here, the bottom left, it's going to turn off at 155. It's currently 149. And so at some time in the future, actually, let's just make it 152. Save it. It's 152. We go down here. We look at the copy of the schedule. There it is. That change has made its way down to the FX80. It's 152. Time is 1:49 in that device. So at some point in the near future, we should see that schedule turn to off, at which point we'll see this supply fan command go from on to off. Okay. So that's the schedule. That's how you share schedules across the Niagara network. Okay, so typically you would host the schedule in the server and then have a copy in each FX80. And the good thing is that if the connection between the FX80 and the server gets broken, that copy of the schedule still exists in the FX80 and it keeps working on local time in the FX80. So schedules will keep working even though the connection to the server has been lost. Another way you could do the same thing is we had just before there, we created our, where was that point that we created, the master points? We got this master start underneath custom control. If we go to our FX80 and we try and discover, go OK. Our custom control master start point, we can add that. We can put a space in there to make it easy to read. Go OK. So there it is. It's turned off because the time has passed. If we go and look at our backnet point, AHU supply fan hasn't turned off just yet, and that's because the times might not be exactly synchronized. Yeah, so it turns off at 1:53, and it turns out that the time hasn't quite got to 1:53 yet on that remote FX80. So when we look in here, supply fan command still on, but in a few seconds we'd expect it to turn off. If we wanted to use the direct command method, we've got this master start point that we've mapped from the server. We can right click that link mark. We can come up here to our supply fan command, right click, link from the master start, take the output from here. Your 16 inputs already being used, but the 15 is available, so we can go OK. And he's on as well. So let's go back to our That's interesting. This is interesting. I would have expected that off to be sent through. Let's have a go at So I just turned it on the server. The point in the FX80 is on. We follow the link. It's now on for the supply fan command. Okay.
Like that and the bottom of the block. Yes.
Okay, so that's the FX server with the schedule and a master point. The schedule is shared by the schedule folder in the Niagara network. So that's the schedules there. When it's shared, we can't edit it because it's coming from the FX server. All right. So the next thing we have to set up is alarms. So we have an alarm in the FX80. We've got our alarm service with our two alarm classes, the default alarm class and the JCI alarm class. Okay. When we connect to the FX server, we can send alarms to the server. And when we send them, we can replace the alarm class or we can append it or we can use the existing. So probably the best way is to use existing alarm class, the one that comes from the source. And likewise, when we go up here at the server, in the service Niagara network, there's the FX80, there's the alarms, and it's waiting for alarms. When the alarm comes through, we'll use the existing alarm and we'll add the parent display name as the source. Okay, save that. Now, back at the FX80, in our alarm service, we want to add a new destination, and for that we have to open our alarm palette. So palette called alarm. And you've got alarm recipients, one of which is called a station recipient. If I drag my station recipient, double click and select the station, which will be FX server, and save. Go back. So now any alarms from the default alarm class can go to the station recipient. Any from the JCI alarm class can go to the station recipient. The station recipient is FX server. And now when we go up here to our FX server, services, alarm service, alarm console, we've got a series of alarms. We go down to our FX80 and we go to our PACnet network, building A, VAV1, zone temperature. We override that temperature to 30 degrees for 15 minutes. And if we go to VAV2 points, zone temperature, override it down to 19 degrees for 15 minutes. We would expect that alarm to get sent through to the server. And there it is. FX01, level 1, VAV01, zone temperature. Okay, you double click. These are all the details. We can acknowledge that alarm. And now we've got VAV number 2 has come through. Look at him. Look at his details. He's 19 degrees. We can acknowledge that one also. So alarms that are raised in the FX80 are being forwarded through to the FX server. Okay, so we've done devices, we've done points, we've done alarms. Okay, trends. Let's go back. At the moment, if we look in our FX80, in our history, we've got these trends being stored. So our zone temperature, that was where I overrode it. This is where I just overrode it again. Zone temperature number 2, likewise, overrode it, overrode it. So those trends are being stored in the FX80, and they've probably got 500 samples, and then it's rolling over. We want to start importing those trends into the FX server. So let's go up to our FX server. Here he is. Niagara Network. There's my FX80. Here's my histories folder. Double click. Niagara History Import Manager. I can go and discover all of the histories that exist inside that FX80. There they all are. I can select them all and add them to my server. Okay. So this list is about to be added to my server, and they're going to be imported. We can choose an interval that says import them every, I don't know, let's say 5 minutes. And when they get imported to the server, we're going to have unlimited capacity. So instead of having a limited number of records, we're going to go unlimited. So the full policy doesn't really apply anymore. And we go OK. So now we've got all of those trends sitting there, waiting to be imported. We look, they haven't appeared here yet. If we pick one of them, say zone temperature number 1, we can right click, go action, execute, and it'll import it straight away. So it's just finished importing ZN01. We look now on our history on our server, we've got, and they're starting to come through. So this one's come through, that one. So this is on the server. It's also on the server. So the procedure was we went discover, we discovered all of the trends, we selected them, and then added them to the server. And we chose how often do we want to import them. Okay, so that's how we bring trends from the FX80 up to the FX server.
David, for
Yep.
the trends, is there a way to reduce the number of history data? Let's say you've got 1 year right now and you want to
Yep.
reduce it to 3 months.
Okay, yep.
To free up storage. Is there a method for that?
Yep, so this is on the server. So in the FX80, it's easy. You just have a number of records that you nominate, like 500, and that's going to contain the size in the FX80. When it comes to the server, we can also, when we import it, we can, instead of saying unlimited, we can nominate a record count. So we could work out how many records is 3 months at 5 minutes. And we could do that and roll over and not worry about it. Or we can leave it as unlimited, which is what it currently is. We can then go to our history folder down the bottom of our server. We've got a history folder. These are histories that are being taken, actually sampled in the server. These are histories that were imported from the FX80. We can double click this and I don't go up to the history itself, top node history. And we've got our database maintenance view. And what I can do here is for my zone temperature, if I move it over to the right, whatever I choose down here is so I can clear old records before the 30th of March. 30th of March. And then go run maintenance. Remove all records before the 30th of March from the selected history. So everything on the right-hand side will lose its records that are before the 30th of March.
What's the difference between clear all records and delete histories?
Okay, so if I clear the records, so say zone, if I choose this guy, move him over to the right and go clear all records, run maintenance. So that'll take away all the records, but the history will still be there. So my VAV zone temperature now, when I double click it, there's no records there. But the history is still there. So the next time an import occurs, it'll get populated again. Okay. If I choose to delete it, then I take that, shift it over there and delete it, run maintenance, it'll remove that entry altogether. Okay, so clear records just takes out the samples and leaves the definition there for the future use. If I delete it, it's gone. It deletes the samples and the record and the frame.
Got it.
Yep.
Did we cover how to export records to like Excel?
So if I get this guy here, zone, no, where's this one? This one. So there I've got a graph. From here, when I'm displaying it, I've got this export icon on the toolbar. Okay, so I'm displaying a trend. I can go export, and I can export the chart as a PDF or the history as a CSV, save to a file on my C drive, JCI, so save it to file, this time on my C drive, go OK. File exists, yeah, overwrite it, yes. And now I look on my C drive. C, JCI. There's a file trend with today's date and time. Double click. And that's what you've got. So there's the timestamp, the flag, the status, and the value.
Got it.
Okay. So if I go here to my history, I can put more than one. I can put that one on, I can put this one on and build the chart. So VAV01, I cleared him out before. If I go to my history manager, and that ZN AHU zone 1, this guy here, if I execute that so that it imports it again, then I go back to that chart. There's my blue temperature and my red temperature. Okay. And then I get the option here to export your file, C drive, JCI, trend, save, okay. Let's try that again. I export this guy. So, okay, so I don't get to view it. All I can save it is as a chart. Okay. If I wanted to, this chart builder, can I view that? Yeah, all I can do is view that, is save it as a PDF. I don't get to save the data.
Oh, we can't export multiple data into CSV?
Not through this page. Let me. Sorry, so if I go to this history here, I'll have to see what.
Is it because the timestamps could be different?
It may be. I just need to work it out. So, yeah, we can build this chart, and it's got both lines on it. We can save the chart as a PX file. Let's save that. Which means that we can come in later into here, and somewhere in here there'll be chart PX. I can double click, view it again, and from here I can export it, but again it's just the PDF. Yeah, so it's just exporting the image. There will be a way that we can do it. I'll just have to find out what that is. Because yeah, you can definitely do it because we've sent it we've emailed it out from station. So yeah, it's definitely something we can do. I just gotta remember how to do it. So if it was a single chart, it was easy. We just went here and where was it? Just went there, and from there we can export it. Oh, we've got a lot of choices. I'll just have to work out why it was that I couldn't do that for several lines. Okay. So that's our trends. And that's pretty much, yeah, that's everything covered for the Niagara network. We've gone a little bit over time. So yeah, if there's any questions on any of that.
As a question in the chat.
Yep.
From Medicis SI. So,
Which saying where? This is the sample UI question.
yeah, because in the Medicis world you have MUI and
yes.
then we have separate SMP and all that, you see.
Yeah.
So I think his question is asking whether what you see in Workbench is the same as what you see at the site once you're done.
Yeah. So when you're done, the interface that your customer sees is they can, if they log in using Workbench, then this is what they see. They can, that's their route, and you set up the links to schedules and all the rest of it. So you build the user interface, starting it with your home page and navigating around like we did the other day with graphics. You can view that in Workbench, or you can use a browser and go to localhost. I think it's 8080 for this one because I changed the port. No, maybe 8081. Let me just confirm my services, web service, HTTP port is 8080. Okay, failed to bind. Now I can log in, admin, and now I'm into the web-based user interface. Yeah.
So when we install a FX server and FX80 at site, we can log in, and and we don't have a Workbench at site. So we can log in at the FX server with the Workbench view.
You can, so if you have Workbench software, if you have FX Server software, then that's FX Server and FX Workbench is the same software, and it consists of two components. There's the platform service, which runs in the background and hosts the station and does the FX Server function. And then there's the thing that we've been using all this time, which is the Workbench software that looks like this. And it can connect to a local device, or it can connect to a remote device. So when I connect to the remote station, this is what I see. And if I go to the root, this is what I see. And I build this interface. I do all this navigation. So all the stuff that we did the other day. So that's a remote one. Same if I go to a local station. I can log on, display the route, navigate around. Yeah. All
right.
Yeah, and you can also use a browser to see the same thing. And the browser can be on this PC, or it can be anywhere on the network that's got connectivity back to this PC. So in my browser, so if I look at my remote station here, which is my FX80, so not this guy, but this guy here, I'll just check his web service is using port 8081. So if I go to Chrome, and I go to 192.168.8081, go enter, log in. I'm seeing the browser version of that, of the interface. Yeah.
This for the FX80?
This is being served up by the FX80. Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
By the device at this IP address.
So for Workbench, we will have all the option license enabled for 1 year.
Yep.
But for the FX server, we'll only have the licenses that we have purchased enabled. Am I right?
So if you have the demo Workbench, which is intended as an engineering tool, if you've got demo Workbench, then the license expires every year and gets renewed every year. Okay. And it's got all of the features activated. It's a test engineering workstation, right, for testing. That's what I'm using for both of these JASES at the moment, is demo. And every year it gets renewed. Okay. And so that's why I can't take it and put it on a project, because in a year's time it'll stop working. Okay. For a project, you buy FX Server software with a Niagara license, and if you want to connect to IP devices, you get an IP license. So that software will run forever. You buy maintenance for 1 year, and that means that any upgrades that occur in that year, you can apply them to the FX server. At the end of the year, it keeps running. You just can't upgrade it unless you have software maintenance in place. So that's the difference. The demo software, Workbench demo, is renewed every year because it's an engineering tool and you have to be current to use it. the site software or project software runs forever. Okay.
Right. There's some other questions in the chat, David.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so can we, so local storage, so saving the trend to local storage. So right now we've got FX server running on this PC. This is running on my PC, and this history is being saved to the hard disk on my PC. So this is local storage. It's being saved using the Tritium format or the Facility Explorer format. So the only way that you can get access to this trend or history data is through this interface, or by exporting it to CSV, or you can use the OBIX API. So the data is stored on your hard disk, but it's in a Tritium format. Okay. If you want to store it into an SQL database, okay, then that's a whole nother 2-hour subject. But the 2-minute version is you have your station running on your server. You have your Niagara network under drivers. So you double click your driver and you add a new network, but the type is relational database management network. Okay. So it's one of the, it's a RD, Relational Database Management System Network. Go OK. And we'll just call it it's the SQL Server Network. And then underneath that network, you add a new device, which can be an Oracle database, an SQL Server database, or a HSQL or MySQL. So I'll choose SQL Server database, and I go OK, and OK. So now I've got an SQL Server database defined as a device on my server network. And in here, I got my host address, which can be local host, but it could also be a remote device. And in here, I set up my connection. Where is it? That's my here. So my username and password that logs me onto that SQL server. I can then set up to send my histories I think just by having this defined means that the history will be exported to SQL. Let me just, yeah. So this is my SQL database. Oh no, sorry, I've got underneath that, the server looks like it's a device and it's got a histories folder. And then I go and discover the histories that I'm currently storing on my server, like this one and this one, and I add them to my SQL server. And when they get exported to the server, this will fail because that login didn't work. A little try. So the short answer is you set up a network for a database connection. You set up a device that represents the SQL server that you're connecting to. Underneath that device, you've got a histories folder and an SQL Server history export manager that manages exporting that history data from your Niagara database to the SQL database. Okay. As part of this, you've also got the option to map tables. So you can have an SQL table, which has got something like if it was a university and they had if they had a classroom management system or lecture management system where the lectures were in the database and you had a table that told you the start times and the stop times, you could export that data out of that table and into Tritium using a SQL query. Okay, so this is a whole nother industry, right? So if you want to do this, if you want to connect to an SQL server, you have to understand SQL. You have to know how to deal with databases. You know how to set up, how to create tables, how to create logins, all of that you have to know how to do. If you know how to do that, then the next thing you need to do is to look in the docs folder for the doc relational database management PDF. And it takes you through how to do it all. Okay. So everything's possible. You just need to do it and understand it. Yeah.
And the auto export feature is a licensable feature in FX.
So this whole thing, this SQL database connection is a license feature. So you have to pay for that, the license to add that option. Okay. Same for if you wanted to connect to an Oracle database, you got to pay a fee. So there's a license for Oracle, there's a license for MySQL, there's 3 different licenses. I think there's not sure what HSQL is, but I think each one of these is a licensable connection. You have to pay for a license to have that connection.
There's also a auto export license for CSV. So that's just to schedule export data to Excel.
That's right. So, or it's a CSV format.
So
And
it's
so,
similar to Metasys export utility.
yeah, similar in a Niagara sort of way. So I think in your drivers, you add a new, is it? No, it must be part of, yeah, for CSV, I'll have to find out. Yeah, so you get CSV export included in this form, in the form we just did before, where you can call up a single history like this one, and you can export it to CSV. You can do that. That's included in the standard Facility Explorer. The CSV license, I think, is part of that database connection and lets you bring in CSV data into the Tritium system. So again, for doing specific sort of integrations where if the customer gives you his lecture schedule in the form of a CSV file, then you do it that way. Yeah.
But the standard feature of FX, you can't do an auto export, right?
You can. You can.
Schedule export?
Yep.
Ah.
I'll have to remember how we do it. I think in my, let me quickly check, in my email service, we I'll have to go and look it up. There's definitely a way that you can export history data, because we've sent history data as attached as an email before. The CSV files attached to an email, definitely done that before. Yeah, there is a way to do it. I'll just have to look it up and refresh my memory.
All right. Thanks. Please check and let us know later.
Okay, I can probably show you that on Tuesday next week. Yep. Okay. Just back to the chat. What I might do is I'll take these questions that are in the chat and prepare answers for them for Tuesday. might be the best way to do it. And if you have any other questions, if you can send me an email in the meantime.
Yes, David.
Yeah.
Một mình thấy.
All right.
Hi, David.
Hey, Jing, how you going?
Yes, I'm doing good. You?
Yeah, good. Good.
Must be pretty tired.
Yeah.
But I still have to ask you some question regarding the VAV.
Yes.
Because my customer is going to hand over on Monday.
Yep.
Yep. So currently he is using the TE730. Actually, maybe we can end the training first, and then this is an extra session, just a quick session.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So if you want to stay on for this discussion, you can. Otherwise, yeah. So the official training is finished now. I'll stop the recording for now, and then we can